A truth commission to scrutinize France's colonial past in Algeria. Although the initiative's backed by President Emmanuel Macron, he's refusing to apologize for abuses committed during the country's occupation. That's angering many Algerians. So, is reconciliation possible without repentance? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. Algeria's War of Independence lasted from 1954 to 1962 and was one of the world's bloodiest conflicts as former powers decolonized. The Algerian government says more than 1 million of its people were killed. French historians estimate up to 400,000 died. France's bitter exit from Algeria exposed divisions that live on in both countries to this day in areas from immigration and Muslims' rights to religious expression to the rise of the political far right. We'll discuss all this with our panel of guests in just a moment, but first, here's Barbara Angopa's report.
Calling for a reconciliation of memories, President Emmanuel Macron is setting up a truth commission to investigate France's colonial past in Algeria, but has rejected calls for an apology. The decision follows a report by a French historian commissioned by Macron that described the never-ending memory war between the two countries.
There are two things I hope from this report. The first thing is the general message of the report, namely that the circulation of memories really exists, that people can understand each other, that the French understand what the Algerian experience was, and that the Algerians also enter into what was the French history of the Algerian War, of course.
The report suggests the Commission should hear testimony from those who suffered during Algeria's 7-year War of Independence that ended in 1962, and says the portrayal of French colonial rule in schools should be overhauled. But the proposals avoided comment on systematic torture of military detainees and suspects carried out by French forces. It was policy President Macron acknowledged for the first time in 2018. Many Algerians are criticizing France's refusal to issue an official apology. The Algerian government's reaction has been muted, and that's also been condemned.
We do not like France, and this brutal colonialism has not recognized its crimes, and it has committed important crimes. 1.5 million martyrs have been killed among our people. The Algerian state must strike hard because the Algerians are not satisfied.
France will not apologize, as we know. And the reason why it will not apologize is that it's afraid of having to pay large financial compensations.
The establishment of the Commission creates a political tightrope walk for Emmanuel Macron, given that about 5 million people with ties to Algeria live in France. They include immigrants and their families, to war veterans and French citizens who settled in colonial Algeria. And their views and questions over identity and integration going back to the Algerian War will continue to be a strong and contentious force in French politics and society. Barbara Angopa for Inside Story.
All right, let's bring in our guests. Renaud Girard is the chief foreign correspondent at Le Figaro, joining me from Paris. Youssef Bouandel is professor of political science and international relations at Qatar University. And also in Paris, Amal Boubacar, a sociologist and researcher at School of Advanced Studies in the Social Sciences there. Welcome to the program. Youssef, let me start with you today. This report says its purpose is to achieve a reconciliation, but it also ruled out France issuing an apology for the past. From your vantage point, can there be reconciliation without an apology?
Well, it's very, very difficult to achieve reconciliation without an apology. But it could be achieved if France recognizes its crimes and atrocities committed in Algeria over a period of 132 years. I would say that this report by Professor Benjamin Stora, who was born in Algeria and he's a specialist in the North African history, is a very good step indeed. President Macron of France should be congratulated for being the first president to walk into this minefield, because several French presidents before him never wanted to touch this hot potato. But Macron, since 2017, has started to make overtures towards Algeria and to look into the history between the two countries.
Renaud, you heard Youssef there. He was talking about the fact that President Macron is the first French president to wade into this minefield, as he called it. Obviously, previous presidents did not. Mr. Macron, he commissioned this report. He is now going to create a commission based on the recommendations of the report. How politically risky is this for him?
First of all, I want to say that the French colonial presence in Algeria was not 132 years of atrocities. You had first a war to conquer Algeria, was kind of loose colony of Turkey, of Istanbul, of Constantinople, where atrocities were committed. And but then there was some kind of reconciliation, because Emir Abdelkader became a great friend of France and was given a pension and the Légion d'honneur and so on. And we have pictures of the visit of Napoleon III in Algeria, and a lot of people, seem to be happy with the French ruling at the time. And then, of course, in '54, a war started, a war with independence, which started by a crime against two French school teachers that had nothing to do with the army or nothing. And then in the repression of this insurrection, the French army did commit some atrocities and torture. Torture was banned only in '58 when de Gaulle came back to power. But of course, also a lot of atrocities were committed by the FLN, the rebels, against French civilians, but also against a lot of Algerians, a lot of innocent Algerians. And after the war, after the peace was signed in Evian in '62, where Algerians and French didn't decide for apologies or things like that, the Algerians did not abide by their promises and by their commitments, and they massacred what we call les harkis, the harkis, were all these Arabs fighting with the French army. So of course, if France would apologize, I mean, Algeria would have to apologize for all the crimes that Algerian did against French people, but also a lot against other Algerian people. So this is, but also during 132 years, Algeria was not a nation. There were some pirates in Algiers in war. There was a war against America at the beginning of the 19th century, and then the war against France. But now France stopped pirates in Algiers in 1830, but it was not a country. And France built it, discovered oil, and then left everything for the Algerians. The way, 60 years, the way the Algerians ruled their own country is debatable, and maybe that it's true that the current leaders of Algeria does not want to talk too much how they rule themselves the country, and
Renaud,
how they have their own.
Renaud, let me follow up with you on the point that you're making right now, because I want to ask Amal a question related to some of what you were saying as well. Amal, in 2018, Mr. Macron acknowledged the widespread use of torture by French forces in Algeria. That had not happened before. In 2017, Mr. Macron called France's colonization of Algeria a crime against humanity. That was startling at the time. If he's gone that far already, there's an argument to be made about why not just go ahead and apologize.
Well, I think we need to unpack a bit the debate and give more context to the people who are listening to us. First, this is a French report. That means that it is not a common effort between France and Algeria to find a way to agree on their past or to rethink their future. This is a French report linked to the specific conditions of Macron's mandate and also to the specific current debates that are going on in France that are trying to that are somehow worrying about the impact of colonialism and decolonial arguments in the public debates in France. And there's a willingness to revisit or to rethink about the Algerian War in relationship with the colonization. There is this thought in France that radical Islamists or people in the suburbs from Algerian descent, for example, do not know well the Algerian French or the French Algerian history, and there's a need to somehow calm down the debates in order to calm down the cohabitation or the presence of this Algerians inheritance in France. So this is for the framework of the debate. Now, I think that this issue of repentance and apologies, that's something that is, again, very much related to France itself and the fact that France remains, if I can put it that way, stubbornly attached to the issue of repentance and apologies. The more it has had, I mean, we have, it is linked or it is giving birth to two important phenomena. First, doing so because the Algerian regime, between brackets, has not asked for its own report or has not commissioned an independent group of historians, Algerian historians, to give their version of the fact, and it won't. But I think the issue of repentance is having two important consequences. First, it's allowing the Algerian regime to continue to appear as the sole defender of the Algerian revolutionary legitimacy. And it is also encouraging the French extreme right movements to join this debate. And that's not really fruitful, actually.
All right, let's take a look at the role of truth commissions for a moment. Truth commissions have been set up in more than 40 countries to encourage resolution following conflict. Many are based on a model created in South Africa in 1996, 2 years after the end of apartheid. That commission gathered testimony about abuses to start a process of national healing. Liberia set one up in 2006 to investigate crimes committed during one of the worst civil wars in Africa's history, but its recommendations have remained largely unimplemented. Among Algeria's neighbors, Morocco has had one since 2004. It was created to end abuses by the security forces under King Hassan II. About 18,500 people have been compensated, but none accused of torture have ever been pursued. And in Tunisia, a commission was set up in 2014 to look into the dictatorship of Zain al-Abidine bin Ali. By 2018, it had passed nearly 200 cases to the judicial authorities. Yusuf, let me ask you this. How would this commission compare to those established in other countries in the wake of conflict?
Well, the Benjamin Stora proposed this particular commission, and I would say it's work in progress. Obviously, they want to find out what happened because the Algerian history is not written properly, or at least as far as the war is concerned. Who committed what, how, and how. So there are in this report, there are so many issues that will be uncovered. Obviously, the apology has been excluded, and it has never been, to a very large extent, a demand from the Algerian authorities. It is a popular demand from the average Algerian. They want an apology from France. This particular report recognized certain things, for instance, the assassination of Ali Boumengel, which is a good step. So, and after these particular commissions have uncovered what they need to cover, they spoke. I mean, Benjamin Stora, for instance, spoke about the nuclear tests in the south of Algeria, for instance, that disappeared from both sides and so on and so forth. It's only when the truth is known, then a decision will be made about what are the remedies. It could be in the form of apology. It could be in the form of naming and shaming. We know who did what. For instance, when we talk about the assassination of the great Larbi Ben Mhidi, which has always been a secret by the French authorities, and it's only recently that Larbi Ben Mhidi's sister went to France and met basically the French general who executed him. I mean, we know about this. We have known about this for about 10 years or so only. So I guess it's only when we know what happened exactly, then we can think or we can debate what remedies should be made.
Renaud, you were mentioning in your previous answer the issue of atrocities committed during the war. So I want to ask you, President Macron's office said he would follow the recommendation to create a Memories and Truth Commission. Does that mean that you expect that there will be testimonies that will be heard from people who suffered during the war?
Yeah, it would be. History is always good to be written. And you have still many witnesses alive. So you should have witnesses and history made of the French war in Algeria and also the FLN, the rebels' war. And both sides committed atrocities. There is the head of the Wilaya 5, was called Amirouche, was a big Algerian fighter, and who killed so many young Algerian innocents because he was paranoid. So all this has to be recognized. I think that it's good to ask witnesses, they're still alive, and to have a common history of Algerian war. It's very good, and also of Algerian French presence in Algeria, as that I said was very positive. Personally, I don't agree because Macron said that in general, colonization is a crime against humanity. I think it's debatable. You can see myself, I am a Gallic. My Gallic ancestors have been attacked by Romans, by Julius Caesar. I like Asterix and Obelix. I think they're very nice people. But I am personally, as a Gallic, happy that colonization, Roman colonization win, that Julius Caesar won in France. And then I was forced to learn Latin and to have Roman law and Roman roads and Roman bridges and aqueducts and all this. I think that personally, I'm happy to have been colonized by the Romans. So I think that it's quite debatable what President Macron said, but he did say that. But it's true that we need a history written together by Algerians and French. You have a lot of very good Algerian scholars, intellectuals, and it would be very nice to have this history written together. And you have, like it found very popular novelists from Algerian origin, and all the French public love them. So it's good, yes, it's time maybe to write together this history, though it was not decided when they decided to make peace in '62 in the Evian agreement. But now, why not write together the history? But you will not have apology from any side, like you will not have a reconciliation commission or even apology of the Algerian army, because the Algerian army was fighting Islamist rebels in Algeria in the 90s, and a lot of atrocities have been committed, and you don't expect apologies from the Algerian army and the Algerian government for these atrocities. So you will never have apology.
Amel, let me ask you, it's been almost 60 years since the end of the war. How much does it continue to strain French-Algerian ties?
Look, official memories will be always used has a way to ease or has a way to promote a specific agenda on both sides. We should getting beyond this official instrumental use of the French Algerian history to look at one important actor. There's a new generation in both countries now, and there's a need to transmit this knowledge to the new generation. There's a need to understand somehow on how Algerian history should be taught, on what France it is for young Algerians who have not been able to visit the country, because Algeria has also become a very closed country for the past 30 years. Young French people who actually believe that colonization is something bad. So there's a kind of agreement and correspondence between the two generations. That's something interesting that is mentioned maybe too quickly in the report. It's the need to think about way for the new Algerian and new French generations to depend their knowledge of each other. The thing is, we really don't know, or at least from an official point of view, we really don't know what they want, how they will react to these propositions. I do not believe that these issues that are important ones, these symbolic steps the report is mentioning, are really at the heart of their interest for each other. So again, we are having a new generation, but I do insist that nothing will be done or will be able to be done without the participation of the Algerian regime and the fact that Algerian historians, Algerian civil society should be a bit more freer to join the debate and to work with their French counterparts. If you look at the last episodes that Algeria has known, like the Hirak, for example, and all this mobilization, young Algerians are not obsessed with the idea of repentance. Actually, they are not even more looking at France has solely an old colonial power, but has a Western country, has the others. So there's an opportunity here with this emergence of a new generation, but the officials have to follow much more closely and to work with these civil societies and not try to limit the exchange and to link their reports and their work only to their specific political agendas.
Youssef, we only have a couple of minutes left. Let me ask you, President Macron hopes that this report is going to help normalize relations between France and Algeria. Do you think that that can actually happen?
Well, like your guest Amal from Paris said, this report is one-sided, i.e. it represents France's official view of the situation and what needs to be done. As of now, we have not heard anything official from the Algerian government. They have Abdelmajid Chikhi, who is basically the counterpart of Benjamin Stora, who has not said anything. So obviously, we would like, or everybody would like, this story or this love-hate relationship between France and Algeria, in the words of Houari Boumediene, the former Algerian president, who said, between us and France are mountains of skulls and rivers of blood. Obviously, this memory, we need to know more about it. I was very pleased to see in the report of Benjamin Stora that curriculum for school children in France would be revised and would look at the war in Algeria associated with colonialism and so on and so forth, shed the light on so many of the dark secrets they called about opening up the archives. And that, in my mind, is a very, very significant step forward, at least from the French government, because let's not forget that on the 23rd of February 2003, if my memory was serving me right, the National Assembly of France decreed a law that glorified colonialism, which Unfortunately, as far as Algeria is concerned, they wanted to criminalize colonialism, and the motion was rejected 3 times in 2010, 2016, and 2020. I think this is a very, very important step, at least from the French government. It's work in progress. I would say wait and see.
All right, we've run out of time, so we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thank you so much to all our guests, Renaud Girard, Yousef Bouandel, and Amel Boubaker. And thank you, too, for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Mohammed Jamjoom, and the whole team here, bye for now.